energy comes from uranium, a non-renewable resource that must be mined. 13% of the world's electricity comes from nuclear power plants that emit little to no greenhouse gases. Nuclear power facilities can produce energy at a 91% efficiency rate 24/7.
Since 1956, the prime focus has been on the technological evolution of reliable nuclear power plants. In 1942, the world's first nuclear chain reaction takes place in Chicago as part of the wartime Manhattan Project. In 1945, U.S. stages first tests of plutonium weapon, codenamed Trinity, before dawn in the New Mexico desert. On August 6, an American bomber drops atomic bomb on Japanese city Hiroshima. 3 days later, a second bomb is dropped on Nagasaki. In 1951, an experimental breeder reactor in Idaho produces the world's first usable electric power from nuclear energy. In 1979, a plant at 3 Mile Island near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, experiences a major failure when a water pump in the secondary cooling system of a pressurized water reactor malfunctions, releasing radioactive material into the atmosphere. The worst U.S. nuclear accident hurts the image of nuclear powers around the world. In 2011, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake and a tsunami on March 11, 2011, wrecks the Fukushima nuclear plant, triggering nuclear meltdowns that contaminated food and water and forced mass evacuations. Nearly 16,000 people are killed in the earthquake and the tsunami, and 3,300 remained unaccounted for. In 2011, Japanese shut its last working nuclear power reactor following the nuclear disaster, leaving it without nuclear power for the first time since 1970. Nuclear power had provided almost 30% of the electricity before 2011. In 1986, the Chernobyl incident occurred, where the reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl plant exploded, leading to explosions in its core. The Russian government didn't react quickly enough for the situation, causing millions of rods of radiation to be exposed to the environment. This created a bad reputation for nuclear power plants and nuclear energy.
Nuclear energy is used almost entirely for the production of electricity. The electricity is mostly distributed on electric grids to customers. Some nuclear energy is used on ships to produce electricity for propulsions and other shipboard use. There are other uses, but they are comparatively minor. Some of the advantages of nuclear energy is that nuclear energy is the world's largest source of emission-free energy. Nuclear power plants produce no controlled air pollutants such as sulfur and particulates or greenhouse gases. The use of nuclear energy in place of other energy sources helps to keep the air clean, preserve the Earth's climate, avoid ground-level ozone formation, and prevent acid rain. Of all energy sources, nuclear energy has perhaps the lowest impact on the environment, including water, land, habitat, species, and air resources. Nuclear energy is the most eco-efficient of all energy sources because it produces the most electricity relative to its environmental impact. The emissions from nuclear energy are 4 to 150 times less than fossil fuel. There is less chronic health risks and safer work environments, and less mining, which is less damage to landscapes. Some of the disadvantages of nuclear energy are that waste will emit radiation for thousands of years, and the waste that used to be dumped into the oceans in barrels. Now it is held in temporary storage at power plants. The storage and management of dangerous high-level radioactive waste, the possibility of proliferation of nuclear materials, and potential terrorist applications, the high cost of building nuclear facilities, and the possibility of accidents are also disadvantages. Of these, the most urgent is that of nuclear waste disposal. High-level nuclear waste can last for thousands of years before being safe again, so this is a major hurdle which must be overcome before nuclear power can expand. Nuclear power is also very expensive, and given the amount of time it takes to build nuclear facilities, we will need other solutions for the short term. Some of the environmental impacts of nuclear energy is that there will be lower biodiversity, with the construction of the nuclear power plants, and there's possible to have complete destruction when the radiation is released that can ruin ecosystems, displace people, cause cancer, and even cause deaths.
Nuclear power is cost competitive with other forms of electricity generation, except where there is direct access to low-cost fossil fuels. Fuel costs for nuclear plants are a minor proportion of total generating costs, though capital costs are greater than those for coal-fired plants and much greater than those for gas-fired plants. In assessing the economics of nuclear power, decommissioning and waste disposal costs are fully taken into account. Nuclear energy is in many places competitive with fossil fuels for electricity generation. Despite relatively high capital costs and the need to internalize all of waste disposal and decommissioning costs. If the social, health, and environmental costs of fossil fuels are also taken into account, the economics of nuclear power are outstanding. The ROI of nuclear energy is about 5 to 8 ratio to 1, and that newer studies appear either too optimistic or too pessimistic, with reported EROIs of up to almost 60 to 1 to as low as even less than 1 to 1. We mine uranium-235 for nuclear energy. There is only a certain amount of uranium-235. Uranium is transported by having it packed into sealed metal drums. These can be transported to the country of destination by road, rail, or sea.